Okay, Don, let's take a look at your golf swing here. And we'll look at that one more time. So in our lesson, as we break your swing down, in our lesson we talked about lag, which is the club head lagging or trailing behind the hands, and getting to your left side with about, I'd like to see about 70% of the weight on your left side at impact. So let's take a look here at your hands. So your hands are right here. Let me draw a line instead. Your hands start right here in your setup, and the club shaft right here. So the club shaft leans forward. So you're setting up with lag. You can see how your hands are clearly ahead of the golf ball in your setup. If I draw a line straight down from your hands are in front of the golf ball. When we put the swing in motion and we stop you at impact, you'll see how your hands are behind the line that we drew in the setup, and your club shaft no longer leans forward. Now your club shaft looks about like that. So although you set up with lag, you are not hitting with lag. So let's take a look at why that is. Let's bring you back to your setup. I'm going to push one button and bring you to impact. And there's the difference. Setup, impact. And look at your upper body, what happens. Although it looks like it's moving back, it's certainly your head, for example, is back and up compared to where it was at impact. The reason that happens is this. Let's take a look at your head now. Draw a circle around your head. Let's put the swing in motion to your backswing. So you move back off the ball, we call that, or away from the target. And then during the forward swing, it just kind of stays back there. Never gets back to our original circle, and right about here your head actually starts coming up. So you sort of shift or drift back to your right foot in the backswing, and then you just kind of stay back there. On the downswing. So this is a swing that's where you're using a lot of the upper body, but not really much of your lower body. Certainly not shifting the weight enough to the left side. And hanging back on that right side is one thing that is contributing to you not hitting with lag. I think the other thing that contributes to you not hitting with lag is not realizing you weren't hitting with lag. So just knowing this is going to help. So the other thing that's happening, let's take away these lines, is that your swing, let me move this clip up a little bit. With your golf swing, your swing is bottoming out. The lowest part of your swing, I call it the low point, happens right about there. That's where your club is reaching the lowest point of the swing, then it starts to come up. So sometimes you'll hit the ball fat, hitting the ground behind the ball, Or you'll hit it thin, kind of topping it and hitting it with the leading edge of your club. What we need to do is make the low point of your swing be up here. That's where we want the swing to bottom out. So again, identifying where the low point is, where your club actually reaches the lowest point of the swing arc, trying to swing your club through the low point will help you hitting with lag as well. So just having that concept. Let's take a look and let me give you an idea of that. So if we take a look at a swing here, you can see the two arrows I've drawn. One, the yellow arrow is where his ball is, and the other arrow, the red arrow, is where the low point of his swing actually is. So watch where the divot or the dirt gets kicked up, and we'll just say for this demonstration that the center of the divot is the low point of his swing. So here he is hitting the ball, and watch where the dirt gets kicked up, right there. So really the low point of the swing, if I extend a line up from that arrow, the low point of the swing occurs just on the inside of the left shoulder, because the left shoulder is the fulcrum of the swing, with the left arm being the lead arm of the swing. Let's go back to your swing. So understanding, like I said, that we want the club to bottom out over here, and we want to shift over to the left side. Those things will help you keep the lag. The other thing related to hitting with lag is the wrist cock. If you notice your left arm, your left forearm, and the golf shaft. So right there on the downswing, your wrists are cocked. If you uncock your wrists too soon, sometimes people would call that casting, that would also lead to not hitting with lag. So right about there, you can see how your golf shaft is just about in line with your left forearm. That's what you should look like when you're hitting a golf shot, or when you're making impact. So in a sense, when you're uncocking your wrists in this swing, at least the timing of it, you should be hitting a ball that's way back here. So holding the wrist cock a little bit longer is something we also need to do in order to hit with lag. Again, if I just demonstrate, I'll bring your hands just even with the outside of your right leg on the downswing. And let's compare you to our swing model. And we'll bring his hands just outside, or just even with the outside of his right leg. There we go. So if you take a look and notice where his golf shaft is, compared to your golf shaft, he's held the wrist cock a little bit longer, which will allow him to then hit with a forward-leaning golf shaft. So holding the wrist cock longer, getting to the left side more with your hips, bumping to the left, I call it, when you start the downswing. That will really help with your ball striking, being much more consistent with your contact, and not hitting it fat or thin. Now let's take a look at this angle here. We'll call this down the line. Here we can take a look at path, both your hand path and your club head path. Some people might refer to that as swing plane. The actual path of the hands and club head is not too bad at all. Actually very, very nice. One thing you'll notice from this angle, right about here, and if we look at the face-on angle of your golf swing when you're at the top of your swing. Again, this is something we talked about in our lesson. The left arm really breaks down and bends at the elbow. And it might be because trying to get your hands to a certain height in the golf swing to make a full swing. But if we take a look at your upper arm of your left arm, and if we were to keep that arm straight, it would look like this. That's where your hands would be, and therefore, right about there is where the club would be. I think you'd be much more consistent that way. You don't need to really get your hands that high by breaking your left arm down. That just creates an extra moving part. That's really not going to benefit us at all. And in fact, when you swing down, right there the left arm starts to straighten out, but I think it's also contributing to the uncocking of the wrist. So I'd like to see that left arm, as we talked about again in the lesson, trying to keep that a little bit more extended, get those hands a little bit farther away from you, create a bit of a wider swing arc. One final thought from our face-on view. If we put you in your setup, if I draw a line straight up from the golf ball, actually, not necessarily up from the golf ball, but up through the center of your body, which in this case, the ball happens to be in the center of your stance. Notice how your head is slightly forward of that line, your hands are forward, and your weight is evenly distributed in your setup. I'd like to see your head directly on the line or slightly behind the line. But especially at impact, if we look at your swing relative to that line, your hands are on the line. You've got the weight is evenly distributed between your left and right foot, and your head is slightly behind the line. I'd like to see your head slightly behind the line or on the line, your hands in front of the line, and more weight on your left side. So what does that look like? Let's take a look at a golf swing here. Let's go to here. Let's bring him to impact. Oh, and you can see this move right here. Look at his hip as it moves towards the target to start his downswing. In fact, if I bring him to the top of his swing, draw a line up from the outside of his foot, watch how he moves that hip into that line to start the downswing, and then rotates around it, staying on that line. Let's bring him to impact. And you'll see at impact, if I draw a line, let's bring him back to his setup. If I draw a line through the center of his body, you can see how his head is slightly behind that line. His hands are just about even with the line, maybe slightly forward, very slightly, but watch what happens at impact. This camera is going to move a little bit. But look how far ahead his hands are at impact. His head is behind the line, his hands are ahead of the line, and he's got more weight on his left foot. The picture you see of yourself right here is you at impact. So let's take a look at, there's both of you in your setup. Push one button and bring both of you to impact. So just about his entire hip complex has moved in front of that line, but his head stayed behind the line. So getting to your left side again and hitting with lag, very key to improve your game.